What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to do the Immortal Hulk issue number 22 from Marvel Comics by Ewing, Joe Bennett, Rui Jose Palmounts. I believe I said that correctly. I'm not entirely sure. Cover by Alex Ross. So, there is a woke part in here that I need to address. It's small, but it has to be here. It doesn't need to be here. It shouldn't be in here, but it does because this is a book from 2019, and we all know, yeah. I'm not going to address this shit again. So yeah, we have Walter Kowalski, I believe. He's still dead, right? Because of Fortune killed him, I believe, or soldiers killed him. I'm not sure anymore. Anyway, but Puck here doesn't, seems to care much because he's a Gamma guy, just like Samson, right? Eventually he comes back, like Samson. But Samson is here now a week, and Kowalski is still dead. So, but then the rest of Gamma Flight, I hate that name. Anyway, so we have Titania and Absorbing Man here blames basically Samson because, they need to find the Hulk, but the Hulk is a patient of Samson because he is a psychiatrist, and she, accuses him for, holding back information, even if it's, patient confidentiality, if I say that correctly, because lives are at stake, right? And then talk about Fortune, that they came here and killing Kowalski and drugging the Absorbing Man. And he says, well, I'm clean now. So maybe he was addicted. I don't know. Anyway, so they need to have payback, right? All right. And then Puck here is now taking over leadership, and and the other blames Walter here that he wasn't a good leader, and Samson says the man is barely cold. Well, he isn't. He was a weak dad, so he's cold. Anyway, so they want to go after Fortune, but then at Shadow Base Site B, the Doctor here is yelling at Fortune. He says, "What the hell is wrong with you? You killed 2 flight members of Gamma Flight, and with the Abomination shell taking it with you, and now you do this." Well, yeah, because Fortune is now merged with the Abomination. Sort of, right? Except the head is not really right. And also, I cannot remember that the Abomination has all these spikes in his arm. Probably, modification. Not sure. Anyways, he says, Dr. McGowan says, hey, we need to run tests, and we don't know what to do with your body. But Fortune says, your genius has brought you some leeway in terms of your constant insubordination. I am control here. And he repeats that, but he's bleeding, and she says that to him. It's some minor side effects. Nothing to trouble you. Nothing for you to trouble yourself, Doctor. It's always the nature of the project. We fight monsters and we make weapons. The Abomination was a monster, a terror against society, and now it's our weapon, my weapon. So basically, he's saying he's going to use every tool in his box to, to take down his enemies, right? And he says, in terms of the shell effect on me, I'm in a vastly better shape than the last pilot was. Well, she was talking about Rick Jones here, and Rick Jones is, not dead, but mostly a corpse. And we see Betty here sitting on the toilet, and then we have Dr. Banner here, and she's now changing into Harpy, I guess. He says, how about Rick? Any more changes? He says, no, he made a noise or not. He says, hey, can we talk? And are you able to change back? She says, yes. Are you going to? No? This is me, she says. I like a little bit defiant. And he says, well, I cannot do this. But then, now this is the weird part that Joe Fixit, the Grey Hulk, is now somehow controlling or can control or giving control of Dr. Banner's body. How that works and how that came to be, I do not know. And I'm not sure if we're ever going to have a proper explanation about that, right? Because we all know that Banner and the Hulk are 2 separate entities. But Joe Fixit, he was just the Grey Hulk. He was a manifestation, another Hulk manifestation. But taking over Bruce's Banner's body, that is something new. Anyway, so he compliments Betty. He says, hey, I'm going to check on McGee. He says, hey, can I get you some lunch? She says, no. And then she's changing back to Betty. Although she says, no, I'm not going to change back. So she is basically defying, if that's the word, Bruce Banner. Interesting. Meanwhile, we have Joe looking at the sun. I think we're starting to get along, you and me. Sunshine Joe, what a concept. So what he means with that, I mean, in the earlier, Hulk comics, Joe Fixit came only out when it was night. He cannot stand the sun. When the sun comes up, he changes back into Bruce Banner. It's not the case here. Again, not sure how it works. Anyway, so we have McGee here reporting about the things that happened in the last issue or the issue before that, because she was shot, etc. And she doesn't know how it goes on from here. But then there's a knock on the door, and it's Joe Fixit, right? He says, Joe, don't do that, okay? It wasn't funny the first time. Hey, listen, we're moving. So pack your stuff together. And she says, hey, you could leave me behind. It'd be easier for you. Why don't you? Hey, you want to go? Go already. I ain't gonna stop you. It's Big Daddy's devil who wants to play it safe. Talk about the Hulk. But he's in charge. Why does he care? Why does he care about anyone who's not Bruce? Good question. All right. So he says, well, I think the big guy likes you. You can say to him, and he's not, you talk back to him, but she also says that he's scared of him, and then you give him crap anyway. He likes that. McGee is a cool character. I like that. Some terrible ads. And then this is the woke part that I talked about. So he did some digging about her work, right? She's a reporter, and she has, he has a lot of time. And he looked at her articles. And he says, they were pretty good. The trans rights one, that was really good. I get that. Folks wanting to be themselves. That is, I wasn't reading the paper. I was in the library using the computers. I got to see the comments. And holy crap, lady, you sure know how to piss off the puny humans. So basically he's saying, that everybody is who is against trans rights is blah, 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 blah. I mean, why would a Hulk, Joe Fixit, care about trans rights? This is why I hate this shit, right? It doesn't have a place in this comic or in the comics industry in general. I mean, it doesn't belong in Marvel Comics, doesn't belong in modern comics or in DC Comics and whatever. I mean, do you, reader, watcher, care about trans rights? I mean, I read comics for escapism, right? And I'm not going to rant all over this, but I want to point out how ridiculous and stupid this is. Nobody cares about trans rights. Marvel doesn't care either. They're just virtue signaling, because when the sales dries up, and it already dries up, they're going back to status quo. I mean, I saw an article that they bring back swimsuit editions. I mean, isn't that what they really, years ago or not long ago, all these people are screaming, bigotry, sexism and all that stuff, right? And now they're bringing back, hey, by the way, we have naked boobs or sexy women and sexy men, and now it's all perfect fine. But here in 2019 till now, it was a problem. But you don't hear them from that anymore. They are quiet. So, okay, that was my little bit of a rant. Anyway, so Joe gets a call from Betty, and it's Rick. He's glowing, and he says that they are underneath the ground, under the Groom Lake. And he says, I remember everything, Bruce. I remember everything they did to me. And then we go to Gamma Corp. They also figuring out that this Groom Lake and then the Felix Doc Lankowski came right beneath under that lake. Does make sense as Puck. Groom Lake is also known as Area 51. And also, it's where Gamma Corp units was originally stationed. It has a history of anti-Hulk activity. All right. So then they said, hey, let's pay them a visit. Can we teleport in there, right? So Doc Samson has some reservation. He says, are we just walking in there? Breaking some heads in there. Right legs, you know it, baby. All right. So they come up with a plan. And he said, so Samson says, is that simple? What if they know we're coming? Please. They have to be psychic. Tan, tan, tan. We are, says Fortune. And I like this page. This page is super cool. I think, we have Fortune. We have this guard robot dog here. Some mechanical guys and soldiers with super high-tech weapons. And he says, remote viewing. The military applications were first explored by the Russians during the Cold War, but we closed the gap quickly. Our new wave of psychic surveillance technicians can reach anywhere. Once we have a location, even in orbit, we have absolute informational capacity. We knew you were coming before you did. All right, I like that. Surprise, MFers. So he says, hey, Samson, that's fascinating. You are up and about so quickly. It seems that your recovering period seems to get shorter each time. I make sure Dr. McGowan concentrates on that aspect when she dissects you. So, but Samson raises some concerns about what Fortune did to himself, right? He says, I did this to win a war, to bring order to a world without. And then he is going back to the origin of Doc Samson. Although I realize that is not as heroic as destroying your life to impress your patient's girlfriend. So what happened is that Doc Samson, who was just a military science guy, fell in love with Betty Banner, or Betty Ross, maybe bad at the time. Bruce was, her boyfriend, and he changed himself into Doc Samson to impress her. And he also fought the Hulk. Of course, he lost. He says, yeah, I know it wasn't worth it then, and it isn't worth it now. Nothing's worth this. So Fortune says, I know once my scientist gives me the data, once that you've been taken apart, filled in the index with all the other mutates, and once we're ready, we'll finally bring down and then here's the sound. How did he? Once we're ready, he said, nobody's ever ready. So yeah, the Hulk is here. Kenny says, knock, knock. Leads us to the next issue. This was a nice filler, except for the woke stuff. Maybe it's not really important, but to me it is. It doesn't need to be and shouldn't be in this comic. It hasn't a place. Hulks don't care about social issues at all. The Hulk is only here for smashing people. That's the only, it's not the only purpose, but it's probably his biggest purpose, right? He wants to be left alone. He doesn't care about real world issues. And I'm neither. I just want to read comics and having fun. I don't care about real world issues. Therefore, I read comics. It's escapism. Get the shit out of my comic. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think about it. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.